Let me give you a anything
We are
that's gonna
live.
not have when you
And
edit.
we are live. I'm not editing nothing else. So what it said is said. As y'all can see, we are pre-potting already.
Whoa,
So you know who we are. Let's continue the conversation.
Let me tell you, baby, my teacher gave you over. You hear me? Don't even worry about it. Don't even worry about it.
So as you can
Wait
see,
a minute, I gotta do.
you go ahead. I'm gonna intro us, but I'm gonna let y'all keep talking. But look, today we are the name of our podcast is Child's Play. It is a talk on the state of the school, and as you can see, we have been having a lot of the school has been in the news a lot here lately about teachers getting into it with students and students getting into it with teachers. And today we just want to talk about things that's going on in the school. And so we have already started talking and it was getting good. So I wanted to go ahead and record. So back to y'all.
Okay, so I'm sure everybody's seen this video that's circulating or whatever. And I do want to say something about that. I'm not going to talk too much about the video. But so since it's circulating, it's viral, the children have seen the video. Mm-hmm. So after they seen the video, they came back to class and that was the topic of discussion. All and right. So a student goes, "Hey, Miss Bryant, what if somebody hits you?" Let me first say this. I would like to think I would do the right thing. That's the politically correct thing, right? The statement. Mm-hmm. But let me just say this. We all don't know what we would do until we're actually in that situation. So I can't say I would turn the other cheek. I can't say that I would swing. You don't actually know what you're going to do until you're actually presented with that situation. And but I did say, y'all know Miss Bryant got a little crazy in her. And so one of my students goes, "Miss Bryant, a little crazy? You got a lot of crazy." I was like, "Yes, Lord." I'm glad y'all know.
So don't try your hand over here.
I'm glad. Try Jesus. Try Jesus. Yeah. Like, wow. But, I mean, this 21 years ago, I graduated from school, I know, in 2001, and I went straight into education. Back then, it wasn't heard of that students were hitting teachers. And when I first started, it was rare. But when I first started in teaching, paddling was still going on in schools. Now, back then, the parent had to sign something that said that they approved or whatever. But it was not heard of when I first started in teaching that students would raise their hand at a teacher or be in their physical space. Now I realized that children, since the pandemic, they don't understand boundaries, because there are times when I feel like people are invading my space and I'll be like, back up 2 spaces, because you don't need to be right up on me. Right. There are times with, and I've had boy students, they come right at you, hugging you straight. And I'll be like, "Give me a pound." You're always having to think of something where, you won't mess up your name. And I've had a boy student say, "Well, why can't I give you hugs? Because you don't know how to hug appropriately." That's why, but, it's for me, the state where we're at in education, I've never seen it before. 20 years ago, never. 10 years ago, never have seen where we're at now. And it is so disheartening. And to speak of that, not just in our counties, we have in districts, we have a shortage of teachers. We have a shortage of bus drivers. we have a shortage of substitutes. Subs don't even want to come sub for us. So that makes teachers have to cover other classes. So that's draining.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you've taught all day and then you got to go cover another class during your planning period or your break, or you have to stay and watch students for another hour and a half because there's double routes. It's draining and it's taxing on the body. Teaching is not really a physical job, right? But it's emotional. You're emotionally drained sometimes, a lot of times. I've seen people lose their passion for education, and that's sad. Somebody made the comment, after a while, you're gonna have a lot of people that will have to be homeschooled.
Mm-hmm.
So because of the shortage of teachers. And to me, that is disheartening. And by the way, and let me say this, what is it? Teacher Appreciation Week is coming up, May the 8th, whatever that week is, that's Teacher Appreciation Week, Nurses Week. And while we're doing these plugs, my birthday is May the 2nd. Mother's Day is coming in. I'm accepting all gifts. I'm accepting cash. I'm accepting gift cards, checks that don't bounce. If you want to go buy me a car, that's fine. If you want to go buy me a house, that's fine too. Land, whatever God lays on your heart, I'm accepting as long as those checks don't bounce. But
we don't accept checks. We don't have to worry about that. Cash out.
I do. Okay, then let's do the certified checks.
There you go. Okay, we'll do that.
Certified checks. But during that week, not just during that week, please encourage your teacher. Please show teachers appreciation. Please say thank you for what they do. We do a lot on the clock and off the clock. You know, I'm one of those that this week I have been praying for some students, you know, so we spend a lot of money out of our own pockets. My son is always like, you buying that again for your students? I am. You know, and there's some students that would never have some things if I didn't buy them for them. So just appreciate teachers. But I'm going to let y'all talk, but two things I do want to go back and talk about later is accountability and respect.
Oh, well, we're already there. So you can go ahead because that was my question is.
I said, you driving today?
Yeah, absolutely. That's my question. Like, who's responsible? What's the root of the problem? How we fix it? Those are the questions for today. Because, we got to start somewhere. It's the middleman, and it got to end somewhere. So how we going to do this? And as educators, as parents, the students, a community, what we going to do? How we going to fix this?
I think it's an all-inclusive approach.
Almost definitely.
It's the way I see it, because we have lost and anytime you're ready, for instance, just go. We have lost our ability to be a village because people take things so personal. I think some of us, instead of dealing from some trauma, because I think maybe back in the days when we were raised, we might have experienced some stuff that made us not want other people to say something to our kids. But what have happened is we have cut off a lifeline. So instead of you thinking you just had a bad experience, just know that everybody's not like that. Because it do take everybody. We lived in some apartments when I was coming up, 13, 14. And we had strategically placed a grandmother on every block. And I don't know how that happened, but, they lower saw fit that we had one. And so them grandmothers would keep us all in check. We knew when we saw them, we had to straighten up whatever we were doing because they were going to say something or tell our mama and daddy. And you couldn't say nothing back to them because you did, they were going to tell that. Mm-hmm. And while we on that, if my daddy would have seen me hit a teacher, he would have never said nothing to the teacher. He would have beat the brakes off me. He like, boy, I don't know. I don't know what they did, but you know better. And so he'd have got me for that, for sure. I don't even know. He might have spent the block, talked to the teacher a little bit, see what really went on. But I know I would have been the first point of wrath because I know better. You know what I'm saying? And it's like I was on a podcast and I was telling them that we have the adults and the kids that really not a lot of separation in them like we used to when we grew up. You know, there was an adult. We knew what the people. There were people in their early 20s that I thought was like, you know, when you seen grown people, you just knew they were all grown. You know, we weren't allowed to interact with them as much, sit and talk to them. And so I think, you know, I don't think there's nothing wrong with children talking to an adult, but I do think there's something wrong when we start including them and making them seem like they're on the same level we are. And so I think that's why we have some of the response from the kids that we do. And Francis, whenever you're ready, shoot there.
I love what you said about the village. When we you said you cut a lifeline when people can't speak to our village. I love that. Mm-hmm. And for me, I always go back to this. And I've always told teachers this. I've always told other people that were around my children, I don't mind you correcting my children. I want you to correct them if you see them in wrong. But what we don't do is break their spirit. Mm-hmm. I find that there are people that don't know how to correct. Yep. And they go and they break a child's spirit. I've seen this personally. And it, you know, you don't want to humiliate a child, even if they're doing wrong. You don't want to break their spirit. It's okay to correct, but we need to correct in love. If you don't know how to correct in love, you need to get somewhere and sit down. Because we don't need to destroy children. I could say this, and I gotta write a letter to somebody because the way this was done, I just really loved it. There was a quote on person that was a normal troublemaker. But something had, there was an incident the person was involved in, and this time the troublemaker was the victim. Mm-hmm. And I appreciate that this time, because a lot of times when you're labeled as the troublemaker, when stuff happens to you, it's overlooked. All but right. This time it wasn't overlooked. This known troublemaker was heard. He was seen, you know, so I appreciated the way that was handled. And let me say, that's not the way it's always handled, and that's why I appreciate it. And a lot of times, I'm just going to be real. The Lord protect the job. Right. But a lot of times, minorities get labeled as troublemakers faster. We're in the system faster. This is our reality. We're punished harder. School system, real world. And so that's why I say that incident was probably the most pleasing incident. And I was like, thank you, Lord. This child knows that if, you know, I've done all this stuff, but something happened to me and they listened to me. Mm-hmm. You know, so I appreciate that. And I shouldn't even have to think like that, but it was just something that caught my eye this week. And I was just so pleased with the way that, now some things was just like, but the question was, who is responsible? And I like to say this, I have children and I'm a teacher. And I used to always tell my children, you know, I'll take off this teacher title right quick for y'all. Mm-hmm. Because first thing, I'm a mother. And now for me, I had some boys. We had some rough days in the school system. Some rough days in the school system. I'm not even going to say we haven't. Who is responsible is the question. First of all, the Bible says in Proverbs 22:6, train up a child in the way he should go. When he is old, he will not depart from it. I think some parents are naive because they're like, my child ain't going to do this. My child ain't. They do. Mm-hmm. They do. They absolutely do that. And they do more stuff than what you could imagine. And see, for me, I was never one that won't say my child. Now certain things I know my children aren't typically of. Like, none of my children are people that generally will start a fight. But baby, if you bring it to them, they're gonna end it. I'm just gonna let you know.
I used to think of a nephew, but that one, no. Please leave me alone.
If you call me and be like, they just punched somebody, that's not usually their character. Now, honey, now any call that went like such and such, was bullying, okay, what's the consequence? Because I know they handled it. It's not even a thing, and now let me say this, and I always used to because my children used to attend private school, and I used to get the most calls for that Zacchaeus. But let me tell you something about Zacchaeus, especially when he was younger. He was very smart. He's very smart. So he's just a different character. And when he was younger, he was really short. So what they didn't know is a lot of times people would pick on him because he was different. But they didn't know the beast that was inside of him. He was a nerd. He was different. He was, he did a lot of stuff. He wasn't like the athlete. He played sports, but he wasn't like Zach, the athlete. He was a church boy. He liked to work, stuff like that. So a lot of things didn't amuse him that most things would amuse some boys. So he was a target to get picked on. And I remember one incident, if Zacchaeus ever tell you to leave him alone, take heed. What is that thing? Please go sit down. But Zacchaeus is not like that. If he ever tell you to leave him alone, leave him alone. Okay. And so one incident, he had told, I remember 2 incidents. He kept on telling him to leave him alone. So the next thing I know, he done picked the person up, threw him against the locker. Because they kept on bothering him. Okay. I'll take the consequence because I know in schools there are consequences. I'm not going to punish you because you should have did something about that. Why was my child? He told him to leave him alone. He kept on telling them. They kept on picking on him. So when he threw him up against the locker, he had reached his final straw. Okay. I remember an incident. They went on a field trip. Somebody had he was in the seat or whatever, and kept on, I guess, taunting, like putting their hands in his face and everything, and just in his space. And so he kept on telling them to leave him alone. So he kind of put that wrist back because it kept on being in his face. But he gave them the opportunity to leave him alone. Right. When I say who is responsible, I was never that parent when I got called was like, oh, okay, I didn't go to the school fussing. I didn't go to the school cursing. I accepted the consequences. I didn't always agree with the consequences, and I spoke my piece about it. And I said this, now I'm not going to be responsible for what my children do. Once they're of age, they are responsible for their decisions. I'm not going to feel guilty because they make a mistake. You're not going to condemn me because they make a mistake. There's some things we're still learning as adults. So children are still learning. They have room to make mistakes. But a lot of times we condemn parents. I think I said something on Facebook about this the other day. Condemning people and feeling guilty about the decisions and the mistakes our children do. I'm not going to do that because they're going to make mistakes. They're going to do stuff that I don't approve of or that I don't agree of. But guess what? Baby, in this house has been taught. They know right from wrong. Now, one thing they know, they're not going to disrespect an adult. I always used to tell my boys, especially that vocal one, look, let me handle the situation. Don't go up there arguing with teachers because as a Black person, they're going to always take it as you're being disrespectful. If a child says their say so, our tone might go up. So they're always going to take it as disrespectful. And I would always tell my boys, now I would get mad at them if they didn't let me handle it, because I knew how to maneuver through the system. I'm a little bit wiser. I know what to say. And there were times, my sister could tell you, there were times that I took backup because I didn't want to go up to that school and cut a monkey, because I'm passionate about what belongs to me. I'm passionate about them 3 children. And what you won't do is do them any kind of way. And now with Zacchaeus, we had some times they won't put them in the right classes. They won't let them do this or whatever. So I had to take that backup person because I didn't want them to see me as that angry Black woman. But I'm going to protect what's mine. I'm not going to defend you and you're wrong. And I think that's what a lot of parents go wrong at. They're defending their children when they're in the wrong. Baby, I'll take up for you. I'll stand up for you, but you better be in the right. And we got parents coming up there fussing, cussing, and all that. Their child is in the wrong. Hold them accountable and take off that bonnet when you come to school. And stop putting on pajamas when you come to school. Oh my God, you're grown. Oh, that's another thing. All right, let me slow down.
Okay.
Yes, Zoe, I'm okay.
Oh my God.
Okay.
Lord, I don't woke Zoe up. All right, y'all talk for a minute and then I'll come back.
That thing was about to preach himself right there now.
Let me take a sip.
I just want to say that I definitely agree with a whole lot of you said. Let me back up to the part you guys talked about, losing the village. Absolutely. I think I want to say under our generation, I think the parents have gotten more lenient. They've gotten they ran off the village. I don't know if it's because of the generation, the age thing, the parents are younger. I don't know what it is, but they ran off the village. You know, like Tyrone said, grandma can't say nothing to you, but you want grandma to babysit. Where the great aunties on the corner can't say nothing because you don't want nobody sending your kids. Everybody held us accountable. When I was in middle school, my grandmother lived on one corner and my great aunt lived across the street on the other corner. So anything that went down that block, baby and Laura saw. And if it involved me, my mama knew before I could even get home. Like, you know, anything. Like somebody was always around. We had cousins that lived down the street, older cousins that lived down the street. I remember I got into a fight one time in middle school, boy. I'm talking about talk of the daggone town, boy. It was home before I got home. Like we had people that saw and told. We had a village. We definitely lost our village. As far, well, I'll just say this. In middle school, I was a fighter. I was a fighter, y'all. I had some anger issues, had some trauma, hadn't dealt with some stuff. So my mama, though, was like, girl, let me tell you something. One more fight, one more suspension, guess what's happening? You're going to an all-girls school. You're not about to keep cutting a monkey in school, and I got to work third shift and take care of 3 kids, and you up here and like a fool every darn day. So guess what she said? Send you away. I heard send away. Well, I can fight in the street. Don't worry about it. But
hold on, that's not drive by that. You didn't hear. You need to quit fighting. You just heard. I didn't quit fighting.
No, I heard. Don't get offended no more. I heard. Don't get. But the other piece of that was this. In middle school, we had our principal, Mr. Durant Jones. I promise y'all, that was probably the first man that outside of my family that I can remember that ever showed like some true concern for me and my well-being. I remember he sat me down and he said, "Why are you so angry?" No, I didn't reveal to him exactly what was going on, but he was the only person, at least he asked, and he held me accountable. And he told me, he said, "You too smart to keep getting suspended. Your grades are phenomenal, but your attitude and your behavior is terrible." Right. I mean, I didn't have the heart at that time. I didn't even really know what was going on. You know what I'm saying? But at least he took the time to sit me down and have that conversation with me, and he kept his eye on me. The other piece of that is he was friends with my grandmother, my mom's mom, like
Right.
for generations. Like, so yeah, again, it got home before I get home. Like
Mhm.
the suspicion notification get home before I get home.
Right.
For my son, behavior problems, learning disability, 3 schools by 3rd grade. I remember my son went to the charter school, and one day I got a call, and the principal said, I need you to come to the school immediately. Don't give me one bit of detail. I get to the school, the principal says, 4 young men attempted to jump your son in the cafeteria today. I'm just looking at him. Then he says, I never seen a child respond the way that your son did. He said, it literally scared me. He said he blanked. He flipped out. He said, your son is not hurt in any kind of way. He said, but I'm so scared that he is going to hurt himself or someone else. So I had to end up sending him to an alternative school.
Mhm.
But what that really did for me was alert me that he had some other stuff going on. And thanks to that principal, you know what I'm saying? That's when we did intensive therapy. Like, we really had to get him in therapy. And backing up before he even went to that school, my son had somebody else that held him accountable. And I had a friendship from my childhood. You guys know Mr. Anthony Harris,
Mhm.
like Tony, as what we call him. He was the person that I told him, if that child get out of hand, like Francis said, you don't break his spirit. But I told him, if he get out of hand, feel free to take him in the staircase or wherever you need to take him and thump him upside his head if you need to. He had my permission to hold my child accountable, my permission to discipline that child in my absence. You know what I'm saying? I remember I had a lady call me one time and was like, well, I saw Mr. Harris being aggressive with, I said, you need to mind your business. You need to mind your business, honey. Because he only doing what I asked him to do. So that's the problem too. Like, people are always involved in things and don't know what's going on. You might not want nobody to say nothing to yours, but somebody need to hold these children accountable. And as parents, to a certain extent, we have to hold ourselves accountable. But like Francis said, when it gets to a certain age, I'm not responsible for what the decision that he made. Like, and I can't be with him 24/7. All I can do is instill in him right and wrong, and that's it. And hope that it manifests itself. That's all I can do.
Yep.
So the responsibility is on us as parents to a certain extent, and on these children. And we got to get back to the village, and we got to get back to somebody can say something to your child other than you, because it's crazy.
I'll say that too, that I think part of the problem that we don't, the grandmas ain't grandmas no more, because grandma's still living. That's your first problem. I think the foundation, because my mama had me young too. She was 16 when she had me, but I had grandma, and grandma made sure we were straight. You know what I'm saying? So, I think the lack of that part of the community, because nobody wants everybody look at being old as negative. I don't, because if you ain't getting old, you're dead. So long as I'm living, I have to get older. And so I don't look at being old as a negative. Most people do, so they try to do everything they can to stay young. So I think that's part of the problem. Some of the foundation that we had to stand on is out of place. And so then with your kids, some of us may experience some stuff that we thought was wrong, but what they did was they built us into who we are now. Not saying that we don't need some therapy and there's some stuff we need to get delivered from, but what I'm saying is they created us to be diligent workers. It's taught us how to be have boundaries and how to stay inside them boundaries. And so when you get your kids, the one thing that I can't say the generation our parents didn't do as well was really like talk to us and see how we felt about stuff sometimes. Mm-hmm. I will say that I think what we have done as a generation of parents is overcorrected that. But we went, they might not never ask us how we felt. And now we ask our kids how they feel about everything. And some stuff you need to be wise enough to know, like, they don't really know how they feel about it. There's no need to give them an opinion on that part, because they gon', their kids, they're not even thinking on a different level than what you thinking on. And so sometimes I think we have to realize that we seen something that was wrong and it's okay to correct it, but we can't swing from one side to the other. And I think we need to teach balance. And that's the same thing with our kids. When we teach our kids balance, like, I had to go to school for my oldest one time, and the teacher was getting into it because she loves to talk, even when she's not supposed to. Don't really know where she got that from.
I wonder where she got that from. But
great grades, bad conduct grade, just like the daddy. And so I went to the school and I talked to her and the teacher. I told her, look, if you got a problem with the teacher, you talk to the adult talks to the other adult. And I told the teacher, I said, you do what it is that you're supposed to do when she's talking when she ain't supposed to. She said, well, she's such a good student. She makes such good grades. I don't want to send her out of class because I don't want to get in trouble. I said, well, that's where you're wrong at. You're not getting her in. You're not getting her in trouble. She's getting herself in trouble.
Absolutely.
So, and when you follow your protocol, then I do what I'm supposed to do. And so, let me let Francis back in. So when you do what you're supposed to do, then I have your back as long as you do it in this order. So we set up a plan and she didn't do it, but I told her, don't call me if you don't follow the plan.
Right.
Because I'm not going to be I'm her daddy. I told you how to handle the situation. And so, I think that's some stuff too, but the responsibility, the one thing that I want to kind of be careful how I say this, but I don't want to think, I think out of all of this, who's accountable for, I think the teacher holds the least percentage of being accountable for. Because their job is to teach our children. Their job is not to be some kind of second parent because they don't have more. So teachers need to have order and they need to have structure and they need to have boundaries. But I do not think it's their job to parent our children. And I think now the parenting is almost done more in school than it is at home. And I think that's because of the way we are, especially I can speak on the Black community because I'm part of it, but especially like in our community, we have a lot of children without fathers in their houses and without fathers in their lives. And I always think that fathers add structure, no matter what. I think they are the ones who build the boundaries that the kids have. And so I think some of that is our issues, but we at a point now that the teachers are having to fight back with the students. And I think it's, a few years ago, you see a bunch of teachers online getting beat up by students because they wouldn't hit a child back. And what has happened is progressively gotten worse. And I don't think they had the backing. They don't have the backing from the parents. They don't have the backing from the system that's supposed to be backing them, the school system. And so you walk up thin line and it's just like with anybody else. Most of the time, people can only take so much before they get to a breaking point. And, and then what happens is, like Francis said earlier, the teachers they set boundaries, like my boundary, 2 feet. You within arm's reach, you too close to me. So I don't need you. I don't need you in my space. So I need you to go sit down. And so you set them boundaries, but when you set them, you have to have, in your mind, you set it. So it's like, all right, now if you come up in my space, I don't know what's going to happen. It's hard for me to say, I can't say what I would do in that situation. I can say what I think I would do because I think, but you got to think, can't take this out. Teachers go through this stuff every single day. So they're already at a height, you know what I'm saying? And then on top of what they go through in class or in school, they got their home life. They got their own kids. You know what I'm saying? And so we expecting a lot from adults and we took all the responsibility off the kids. So that's my thought.
I want to add something. You said something about Francis said something about personal space and boundaries and people being in your space. Mm-hmm. So, right now, guys, I'm working in a detox facility. And let me say this. I'm in there with grown men, right? Sorted past, different reasons for being there. A lot of them don't know boundaries. A lot of them don't know anything about having respect, personal space. I had somebody bust in my office. It's 3 of us sitting, 3 clinicians sitting. I had somebody come, didn't knock on the door, bust in the office and come stand between 2 of us. Now y'all know I got the PTSD. So please go sit down.
Right.
Dude just bust in, just sitting there. And I looked, and my coworker looked at me, and I was just like, dude, before you say anything else, you need to back up. Like, you got to back up because you stand over. It's 3 women, 1 man. I don't know what you in there for. He was like, oh. Well, I don't mean nothing by it. It don't matter what you meant by this. The way you came in with no respect. You didn't address nobody. You just came and stood over us. That don't work for me. These are men who were once children that you know didn't get discipline, didn't learn boundaries. And that's the thing about it though. I see so much of this, and I know what their childhoods were like. And I'm saying to the parents now, you need to get a handle on your children because one day they're going to be in the presence of somebody like me if you don't.
All right. Well, that's true.
You've got men in here who have been coddled by mothers. You've got men in here who have been traumatized. No fathers in the home. Guess where they are now? In detox, on substance abuse, or need mental health stabilization. You've got to start now. Because if you don't, there are plenty of places that are open 24/7 for them. Detox, prison, and even worse.
The boundaries are something. Now, for me, I try to model what I expect. Because I don't, like yesterday, are people bothering my stuff on my desk? Stop touching my stuff. I don't touch your stuff. Don't touch mine. So it's just me saying that I don't bother y'all stuff. Don't bother my stuff without permission. You get permission before. I don't just go to your desk and be bothering your papers or in your book bag in your lunchbox. So stop touching my stuff. That's a boundary, but that's something that should have been learned early on. Okay. I said this before because just because I'm a teacher doesn't mean I can't feel threatened. Okay. I don't like people right up on me. If I could feel your breath, you're too close.
Absolutely.
So that means, and I say step back 2 spaces. If I even feel more threatened, step back 5. If you come to me in a hostile tone, we gonna need some space in between because I don't know what your state of mind is. I don't like my back to be turned to students. You know, I'm one that's always visible, and they know that I'm always, and this is the world we live in. You know, we have children that bring weapons to school. I don't know what's in your book bag. We don't check your book bag. I don't know what's in your pocket. But baby, I need to have enough room in between us. You know, even so, I usually have bottles of water in my class. A student hollered at me and demanded me to give them a water. No, that's water I paid for. There's a water fountain in the hall. I don't have to give that to you. And I explained to that student, had you not hollered at me, I would have gave you a water bottle. But we're going to bring some respect back to it. You can't just demand of me to do anything. And that's one thing. I don't holler at my students. You're not going to holler at me, you know, or I'm going to just act like you're invisible. One thing that I think somebody says is, I think you said, and I think we spend more time teaching behaviors than actually teaching. And I think that's why teachers are losing their passion, because we are teaching behaviors and standards. And that's something that should be learned at home. Education begins at home. I shouldn't have to tell you to sit down in a chair or how to sit down in a chair or why is your feet up everywhere. I shouldn't have to tell you that. I shouldn't have to spend time after it's established what the dress code is. Everybody get a little handbook. I shouldn't have to spend time going over dress code or calling parents because of dress code. And now let me say this, because I do realize once you get to that high school level and sometimes middle school level, we get a little sneaky, because I've been there too. You know, we start hiding stuff. What we come out of the house, we might come out appropriately. And once we get to school, we go in that bathroom and change. I understand that. But what I'm saying, we're spending too many times teaching behaviors, what not to do, or what you shouldn't do, or how you should act. You know, before, usually when we started teaching, we go over those rules, those first few days, we good. But I've never seen, like, even the rough people back in our days, when they came around adults, they straighten up. And I've known people that been in gangs, they come around a teacher or a preacher, they straighten up. They stop the language, you know? No, it don't stop. They don't care if they in front of adults, teachers. And I was saying this, that I worked at the high school this last summer, and I used to have to say, hey, I'm a big old teacher here. Watch that language.
Right.
I mean, the language it was beep, 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 beep. Y'all don't see me? I ain't that small where I'm invisible. Like, and when I said that, they would lighten up. And then I would hear, hey, I'm here. My presence is here. I'm not gonna. So it's just like, they don't care.
Nope.
They're used to doing this. And then and let me say this, we have to be consistent. I shouldn't be the only one saying something about it. It got to be consistency across the board. See, there's a fairness. I don't care if you're Black, Chinese, white, or whatever. There's certain things, if they're school rules, you're just not going to do them around me. You know? So it's a fairness. They know there's going to be structure with me. Okay. One of our school rules is we can't have hoods on in the building and hats. Okay. If it's hat day, fine. But if it's not, we in the building. Well, we're going to the buses, we're still in the building. If we're walking we're still in the building. Take off those hoods, you know. But I can't be the only one enforcing it. It has to be a consistency among the adults. You know, whatever the policy is, we got to come. We may not agree with it, but we have to come and enforce it. You know, so you get where you got a few enforcing it and you got a few that don't. So then we have loopholes here. So they manipulate in the system. We got to get it back where there's structure among all adults and we're all united on the same page.
Right.
So that's one thing, most definitely. And I just want to say, now with the threat of everybody being sued, we have these legal issues. So I'm already an overthinker. But honey, when I hit that school system, I go into overthinking by the max, because you got to be careful what you say. You got to be careful what you do. We got the threat now. Everything, we live in the digital age. People will pull out a phone right now. People will twist what you say. Now, what you get on that go viral may only be 2 seconds of it. They didn't record all the other stuff, you know? So you just got to be careful. And that's always in the back of my mind. You know, phones may come out, you know, but I always say this, there's nothing that I can't say in front of my students that I can't say in front of the superintendent, the president, or anybody. Whatever I say, I'm going to make sure that I'm going to be covered. But not just by them, because they don't scare me. God scare me. And I'm not saying he scare me. That's who I'm accountable to.
What's up, everybody? It's your boy Tyrone Morgan, and you have reached the end of another episode of the Soul Rehab podcast called Child's Play, talk on children in school. So, look, we got part 2 coming up next week. We would like to thank you for tuning in. Peace out. See you next week.